Welcome back to the B&H event space. You are tuned in. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get through it. You are tuned in to part 2 of Roadwork. I love the joys of live streaming where sometimes the green room gets you a little too amped up.
A little amped
A
up.
little too amped. Monica, Michael, it's great to have you back. Let not my smiling and laughing take us away from the wonderful part 2 that we're about to experience of this wonderful Roadwork series. How are you guys feeling today?
Good, good.
I gave him the giggles.
No, it was great because when we were waiting, when you had like you can hold your smile so well, and then I was like, wait, maybe his screen is frozen. And I was like, oh no, he just breathed. Okay, it's really he's just holding his smile. So yeah, cool. No, we're good.
Yeah.
We're excited to be here and excited to show finally now that we had some foundation Monday in part 1. Now we're excited to show some of the results.
Love
And
it.
many of these portraits have never been shown.
We are excited for that. And
I
I'm
was really
excited
careful
because
to wear the same shirt so that this was a continuous
Is it-
thing.
look
So,
at continuity. I didn't
Yeah.
get the memo, apparently. I had to I'm
I
didn't
standing out.
either.
Normally it's like I'm in like a muted black t-shirt and
Yeah.
you guys
yeah, you
guys
look
are
good.
picking
You
up
look
the slack.
good.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you guys have invited me to stay on and keep this thing conversational throughout. So I'm going to extend that invitation to all of our viewers out there. If you guys do have any questions, don't hold them until the end. Especially, some of this stuff, the question is going to relate to the particular story or the image or the moment. So I will do my part in stepping into the background, let you guys take over, and we're excited to see what you have for us today, Michael.
All right,
Okay. Sorry.
go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to load up the screen here. I just work here. Hang on. Did you want to say anything before?
No, I
start
just
the
thought I'd
Q&A?
be normal and be quiet.
Okay. Okay, great. So first of all, thank you to B&H and Sony for allowing us to be here. Again, thank you for not being tired of us yet. And it's because of B&H and Sony that we can carve out the time to do this. And hopefully everybody is excited about that. So I see you have transitions on all of your slides, Michael. You snuck them back in there after I deleted them all. So that's awesome. We're off to a great start. Okay, here we go. Wow, this is going to be a fun one. Transitions snuck back in there. I hate transitions. All right, here we are. Take it away, Michael. I'll just sit here and wait for the slides to dissolve in.
Okay,
Okay.
that'd be great. So, as we dive into part 2 and to really get looking at some of the roadwork images, one thing I did want to show you was our cute dog. And beside our cute dog is one of the think tank small backpacks. And just to show you guys, this is like my easy traveling kit. If I'm going up to New York City, or if we're doing a little quick weekend somewhere, a little quick trip, a little road trip somewhere, this is what I grab. So in the backpack has the Elechrome 1 light, my Sony A7R5, and a light meter, and 2 remotes to fire the Elechrome 1. So, and I also have a little 42-inch reflector if I want to use that.
And your
So-
24 millimeter.
And my 20, that's right, my 24 millimeter prime. So this is my like running grab go-to kit.
Just stays packed.
Right, just take with me and I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Very lightweight.
All right.
So we're just, this is really almost going to be like a portfolio show, but just going to show you the different roadwork settings I've done over this last year and a half. I got to spend some time up in Denver and met this artist, incredible studio out near the stadium in downtown Denver. Native American, so has part of that heritage and history embedded into his work. He's a sculptor and a painter. So just, using the primary colors, turning the lamp on the background, little background light behind the painting also, bringing paint over so that we have that color harmony within the whole portrait. Just different elements to make these portraits work. I have a 42-inch softbox that I travel with. If I'm getting a little bit more serious with my images, I like putting a bare bulb strobe in it, pointed to the translucent layer so that there's a little bit of pop, a little bit of strength in that energy, and has a little bit of personality in that key
Okay,
light.
so I'm gonna because my eyes started glazing over. So let's rewind for just a
When I
second.
talk about lighting,
And let's catch people up. Let's just in case we need a little refresher from part one, we were talking about for instance, in this instance, the painting behind him, the cart with the colors in front of him, probably the plate with the brushes, like those were not there already. You are moving things into place.
they were
oftentimes.
kind of within within a couple of feet,
Mhm.
but I'm just, while I'm talking to them, I'm adjusting things. And, a lot of times I'm doing it purposely. Sometimes I'm doing it without even thinking about it. But for us, I like busyness in this project. I want my portraits in this roadwork project to have a little bit of similarity from person to person to person. But then I want them all to be very individual and
You want the
different.
collection, you want it to be a cohesive collection, like
Right.
look like it's from the same.
Right.
series, but-
I really don't want a close-up of the face where you're just seeing the eyes or something like that, to big landscape and the person is very, very tiny within the whole thing. I want a similar personality that runs throughout these portraits, but I want them to be different also.
Okay,
Okay, so
so one thing that I'm just gonna say, like, we're gonna see in all of your work is foreground, middle ground, background.
in general, yeah.
So I just want to alert the audience so that
Mhm.
they're kind of watching for that throughout these images, because I think that's really striking, and if we don't point it out, it's so natural looking that I think we don't see it, which is what you kind of want, but
Mhm.
you're working with leading lines on purpose and intentionally, and I want people to understand that that stuff wasn't there set up in that way.
So I don't
So-
want to get into the weeds like on on every portrait, but like this portrait, just because it came up first, for example, I like the primary colors. So I have the primary colors uh, to the right, behind him to the left. That little rolling tray of colors was kind of flat up against that table. So I brought it to the right corner and put it at an angle so that there's a leading line into him. That table was just there. So when you have a big flat surface like that, it's boring to me. So I want texture or color or something to be part of that. So I grab that plate with the color in it off to the right and just put it on that table also. Uh, Color is a great compositional element, creating depth by using light. I got a lamp and put it over that painting, and then I put a background light behind that painting. So there was just a little kick of light behind there. So I'm trying to create dimensionality. His warm tone is a point of contrast. So there's that warmth in contrast to the primary colors, which draws our eye to him. So all those different little things help this portrait be okay, because you can see him as a primary subject and then wander around the environment. And I like the busyness because I want people to really look around that image and stay there and digest it a little bit.
And like you said, we're not gonna, dissect each of the portraits, but we just wanted to kind of set the tone for what people should be looking for in the next.
Right.
You're gonna talk about them,
I
but
think
we're not gonna
when-
be here till midnight.
Right. I think
going through each of these
when you look
images,
at
so.
these portraits, I hope I like them to be complex a little bit. I'm not saying they're complex intellectually or have this deep philosophical meaning or something in it, but visually they're a little bit complex because of all the elements that I'm showing, because I'm using a 24mm, a wide angle lens, and what I'm keeping in the portraits or adding into the portraits.
Okay,
And it's because of the texture and detail and all that kind of stuff that hopefully will keep your interest.
So, and
Okay.
you're doing a lot of these portraits in black and white. So are you kind of deciding that they're going to be black and white as you're shooting them, or it's really in the
It's
coloring process?
later, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I know that the colors that I'm using are going to be strong and are going to bring that person's visually to the subject, but sometimes I'm using textures,
Hmm.
you know, and I knew when I was photographing here, the textures would work to make this portrait interesting. You
And
know,
so-
not necessarily the colors that were there.
And a lot of people, and probably not necessarily him, but sometimes I've been with you on some of these sessions, and even the subjects are like, "Oh, wait, let me move the big gulp cup," and you're like, "No, like leave it right there," and it gives them like you're wanting it to be an authentic portrait. We're not trying to clean it up.
Well, I think a lot of times, some photographers clean things up so much that they take the life out of that image. You know, I don't want it to be dirty or sloppy, or I don't want them to look bad. I want them to look good. I want them to look flattered. I want them to look like how they look. But I think a lot of times we take care of things too much and clean things up too much, so that it starts to become sterile a little bit. I like to leave a little bit of life in there so that there is a realness to the portraits. It's not all cleaned up. I think when you look at AI kind of stuff, it's so clean that it's like, it's not life. Yeah, we lost the life.
I'm so glad you guys went there with that. Monica, you took the words out of my mouth
Oh,
with
the big gulp cup?
gulp. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's one of those things where you have to throw out the rules and throw out composition and throw out everything that gets taught and that's so rigid, and you just have to have a feel for what's right. And clutter can
And
be
confidence.
good. It can be organized confusion that creates the big pic. I love this. I love that whole discussion you guys had right there.
And I think that with experience, you gain more confidence, but Michael has a confidence about him and his work to know and to comfortably say to the artist or the subject or whatever, no, we want that. Like, and he can say it with conviction, not like he's kind of, oh God, I didn't see that. Sure, let's move it out, right? I mean, he's very convicted in that and very intentional. And so, so I think that's why that's one of the reasons why people really resonate with these portraits. And I think too, that they keep your interest for a long time. Like you just kind of want to keep circling and circling. And then I kind of
Yeah.
noticed, like in this portrait, I'm like, okay, you have his face, you have the sculpture of a face behind you, but then it takes me a minute to go up to the top of that easel and see the sketches of the faces. And so it's just, you kind of keep, and that's not accidental.
Right.
Yeah,
And
it's so much
actually,
more information to take your eye around, and especially these are the pictures that will wear well over time
Right.
because when we have somebody on a white wall, the only information we really have is their styling, and that's really it. There's no other external information that tells us time and place and what did their studio look like at the time. And going back to what Michael said in the previous image, we overly clean stuff up and we present this fabricated view of life when life is a smart water bottle back there because he's actually drinking it while he works, and not
Right.
saying we need to hide that. Well, no, let's tell the story of
Right.
what his studio looks like and how he functions in his studio. I love that.
And the wax paper, something back there. All right, let's keep going. Here we go. Here's the next one of him. Any other comments?
so, again, a little key light. It's almost a high key type of portrait, but I just love this. It's a big mural that he's working on. I can't wait to go back and do some more portraits of him. And a lot of this stuff comes from feeling of this space. You're feeling how things are fitting together and working. And it's those seconds that you're behind the camera and looking through on that screen or the viewfinder or whatever and going, how can I make this look more interesting? How can I tell more of a story? How can I just reach into him and capture his passion a little bit, get a little bit different personality or taste with it. So
I think I want to come back to the lighting explanation, but I want to keep moving for now. So, but we have
Yeah.
other images that we
Yeah,
can talk
lots.
about,
Mhm.
the bare bulb and all of that, because I think that's going to be important. So,
So this guy right here repairs high-end speakers, and you're walking into his workshop and there's hundreds of speakers. I mean, look at my body. I should stand up and show everybody. I was having a hard time walking through and fitting my body into the space, and he's a man really that you probably can tell, he doesn't want to work around a lot of people. He loves doing what he does, and he's fantastic at it. So, how do you make this look a little bit more interesting? I love those cones or whatever, those circles on the back there. So I decided to shoot through just one of the bookshelves, the storage shelves that he has. And I brought the record over again to break up those lines, but also it repeats the circles that are on the wall behind him, so you're filling in, and all these little lines like the amplifier and things like that help bring you back to him. So so you're thinking, you're solving problems while you're doing this, and there's just, I can't tell you guys, there's a joy to just walk into a place cold and go, okay, what can I do here? How can I solve things and not be too the word's not trite, but just
contrive.
do the ordinary, how can I have a little fresh look at it? And I get to meet these people that just love what they do. These people are either passionate about their life or how they're living or their lifestyle or whatever it is, and they're just, they're people exactly like Derek. Derek, you love what you do. You have passion about what you do. So, it's fantastic because those layers go inside me. They add to my experiences about people and things like that. So, it's just a joy, to meet these folks. I don't know anything about how I like how music sounds if they're reproduced well, but I don't know anything about this. But it added something to me,
Michael, aesthetically, what does it look like you directing them or getting the look you want? Because I think having the right expression in a portrait, the environmental stuff plays such an important, like it's almost like a supporting role. But really, it all comes down to the person, to the subject, to the gesture, to the expression. Like this expression for me right here just totally sells it. Like it's super intense. I love the arms crossed. How do you go through directing? Is it minimal direction? Is it some people a little more than others? Do you have an ultimate vision in mind for the look you're going for as far as the person is concerned?
It's just really, again, it's really more about feeling and that instant of my relationship with that person when I'm talking to him or her. And I don't have an ultimate pre-visualization of how I want this person to be, and I even in our regular family portraits, I minimally pose people. I get them in the right place. I get their bodies turned in the right directions or whatever it is. But people look best when they look natural, and if I put them in pose 1 and 1A and 1B and 1C, it's not how they are. And you saw it with Jason Quigno, and he was the sculptor up in Grand Rapids that photographed, and he was going, I love what you're doing because you're just letting me be me. Or he said something like that, this is great, this is enjoyable because we're just talking. They don't realize that we're going through all these poses or whatever you have it. But it's when you let people have a sense of naturalness, how they are, that's when they're really flattered and look good and they look how they're supposed to be. Not how I want you to put your hands in your pockets and turn and do this or that. So
Well, I think this is a perfect time. We just had a question come in. I think this is a good time to kind of discuss with both of you your approach to, because we have the there's the school side of things, there's the structured education and the knowledge of the camera and the technical aspect. And then there's the feeling. And I feel like the feeling part is coming through a lot more in these, Michael, of you just feeling your way through a shoot and what feels right and taking what you know. You obviously have the technical chops, but we had a question come in that do you think it would be going to a photography school would be helpful for an amateur photographer in terms of placement, lighting, surroundings? So you have the photography school side of things, but then placement, lighting, surroundings, that's all more like feeling what's right. How do you take the technical, marry it with the intangible to get images like what we're seeing?
Well, you know, I was really lucky because I went to Brooks Institute and got that foundational stuff there, you know, and even when you go to a photography school, they can teach you this and teach you that, but you've really got to push yourself to have your own voice, you know, and not just follow the school thinking or whatever it is, you know. So you have to get that foundation. You know, a builder needs to know how to put that foundation up there to do whatever they can. You know, if you're an incredible architect, you're going to think about that foundation and then you're going to put your personality on top of that foundation so that building really sings and lives, right? So when you have that foundation, it gives you the freedom to go your own path, you know, and the confidence to go down your own path, and that you're not scared of the person's reaction. You have, like Monica said, you have an answer for it because you know you're doing the right thing, flattering that person, you know lighting, you know composition, you know all this other stuff, but it's okay to listen to that person. I've had some of my best portraits made because I listened to this mother because she was saying this or that. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. That's fantastic, you know. We had some of our most fun portraits because of that, you know. So you need to have the confidence yourself that you can listen to people and be open to things, all that kind of stuff. There's so much, you know, to really make your personality come out. And it's just, you know, I've been doing this 43 years, something like that. And you just need to keep your joy in exploring this, whatever your voice is.
And I would also add, if I may, that as portrait photographers, and it's different for you, Derek, with the street photography. So I'm qualifying that as portrait photographers, it's our job to create the environment in which the magic can happen. So that's our job. Like, we have to make people feel comfortable, make them understand we know what we're doing. Like, that's our job, with that, all of that foundational knowledge is important so that when they walk on set or they walk into that session, we're not fiddling with lights. We're not looking at the back of our camera. We're not, you know, God, my remote's not working, whatever. Like, we're here for them. And that's what I think translates in these images really well, is you are just so good at being present with that person in front of you.
Well,
unless it's me, but then, but you know, we're not talking about that right now. So,
you know, I do think one of my best one of my best things about me in being a photographer, you know, is that
what are you getting on Tinder or something? One of my best qualities.
Shameless self-plug. Go run with it, Michael. I'm here. Run. Open lane.
I'm proud of my humility. Have we heard of that today? It's just that I'm interested in people. You know, when I get out and do a session, I'm really interested in all these folks. You know, she laughs.
Unless he's doing my headshot, then it's a disaster.
Well, when someone's yelling at you,
okay, all right, we're moving on. We're moving on.
It's hard to work with somebody who knows. I think there's something to be said for when you have somebody who knows the craft. They're going to be extra keyed in. They're going to be extra, and we all have our own style. And it's like, if I have somebody, it's like if I go to be painted, I know nothing about painting. I'm trusting you. When I go to get my tattoos done, I'm not looking, I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do. So I think, yeah, it's probably easier to work with somebody who's just like, hey, I'm paying you. I trust you to do what you do. and you have your work hanging on the walls that instills confidence in them. They know they've come to you. I mean, a lot of you guys' work is, I'm guessing the lion's share is referral, is people who have seen your work, been referred. So, but
Yeah, it's interesting because we broke that down a couple years ago, and it was 85% of our business was reputation, referral, or repeat.
mhm.
I mean, it's like that's magic right there. That's magic, and
And
we're very, very
uh,
grateful for
that's
that.
foundation. To take it back to, like, that point before I let you guys take back over, is, yeah, the foundation. Going back to Michael, your example of a builder, knowing it's knowing that, hey, I know that there's certain things that physics and architecture will allow me to do and that they won't. I can have a huge, balcony hanging off the side, but I know if it goes too far, the building's going to tip this way. So you have to have the foundational knowledge, but beyond that, it's using what we know to know how far we can go to bend the rules. If you can't bend or break the rules if you don't know what the rules are and why they're in
Right.
place in the first place. So I think that's such a great point about having that foundation and then using that foundation. Going back to our original question, Elizabeth, knowing your camera, knowing, we don't want happy accidents. They're great when they happen, but we want intentional decisions over happy accidents. So I'll leave my unsolicited commentary right there. Kick it back to you guys.
Great. Okay. One of the best things about me, I love that.
Michael, I want that on a t-shirt.
Fantastic. Okay. Please hold while I get back to our slides.
It's just a really slow fade transition. It's coming.
Don't even get
You guys know you should have never let me stay on. I should. Monica's
don't
like, I wish you
get
were in the
me
background.
started. No, I love it. Let's see. I am screen sharing, right? Are you guys seeing the Sigmund Taylor?
Yep, seeing it.
Okay, great.
There we
All
go.
right, here we
Nice
go.
easy fade.
So artist enrichment, and we have a lot of images, so we'll just go
Yep.
through them quickly, just available light portrait there, bringing the paintings on the left and right-hand side to bring our eye into the subject. Love all the color, right in the middle of the session, the cat came in, decided to join us. So wonderful.
Which wouldn't have happened if you had wanted him
Yeah,
there.
if I had picked him up and placed him there,
Yeah.
I would be in the emergency department, in a half an hour. So, and that's my favorite portrait of her. Actually a photography camera collector here in Williamsburg. It was like walking through my life going into this guy's office, just 360 degrees of every camera I've owned, every book that I've delved into. It was just magnificent. And I just love the busyness of this portrait. Bounce the light off the right-hand side, off the wall to give a little bit of directional light to his face. He naturally fell while we're talking into this comfortable position. I put that lamp on the left-hand side in front of the bookcase to give a little bit of visual balance and to light up that side of the room so that there was a balance between the right and the left, so that he would be the center point, the hub of the portrait, bringing some cameras in the foreground just to tell a little more of a story about him. A sculptor up in Michigan when we were traveling up there with the Airstream. Just incredible. Look at the work this man does, and just being able to spend an hour with him in his studio. It's pouring rain outside. He is a Southern California man. I would lived in LA for 30 years, and we still probably text every week now.
You do?
Yeah. And I know how to text. Yeah. And connect with him. So key light off the left-hand side, a little speed light as a background light, another little Elechrome one behind me to act as a fill light, because this is a room that has the size that needed a little bit of fill light and a little bit of bounce and get a little bit of a high key feeling in there, because I wanted the colors to pop, in this session.
So your key light, how are you modifying? Is that with your,
42
42
inch.
inch.
Yeah,
I mean, I know, but.
soft blocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Bring the painting on the right-hand side to bring your eye back into him. And then taking that painting over to the work table to the right-hand side there on the next portrait.
Oh, sorry.
And just get a, and not really moving the lighting or the camera too much, just feet, but getting a totally different look in the portrait then. And then it just blows my mind that this is with a 24 millimeter, but I shot it, turned the power down, shot it at 2.8.
Mhm.
So, it gives a feeling almost of a short telephoto, right?
Mhm.
Just blows my mind.
Michael, what was the lighting on this? Is this
Softbox on the left-hand side, a speed light behind him to light up the wall. And then I had another Allen Chrome bounced off the wall behind me as a fill light because I just needed a little bit of light back into the shadows, just a touch.
everyone out there watching? Take notes. This is called restraint. This is called balancing ambient light with artificial light. It's so
Yeah.
beautifully done. I love when it has like that Scott Robert Lim quality of like not knowing how it was lit. And you know the answer is probably like 3 or 4 lights, but it looks like it was just natural window light. Beautiful.
Yeah, when I go into environments, first thing I kind of look for is the flow of natural light into a room. And can I use it just with natural light? Sometimes we want to make things too complicated, and just because we bought some new strobes or something, we want to use them. But sometimes we don't need, The hardest thing to do is not to add into things,
Just like your mama tells you, don't wear all your jewelry at once. Just, parse it out. Wear what you need.
So, I always like, if we can, to have a little bit of that natural light coming into the room because it fills in the shadows. It opens up the shadows. It fills in the spots. It transitions the lighting, so that it doesn't look so artificial. I like a naturalness to the lighting a lot of times.
I love how that face is behind or
Yeah.
parallel to him. I think that's
Guy,
right.
he's fantastic.
Okay, let's talk about this one.
Again, with a 24 millimeter, he works at one of the museums locally, and he constructs how the exhibits are artifacts are displayed in the museum. So he can do anything. He's a metal guy, blacksmith, he's a welder, all these kind of things, and just has a passion for what he does. So again, 24 millimeter, bringing all the tools around him, little speed light behind him, and make the portrait. This was lit. I was down in Atlanta. I was down there to do a family portrait. So I sent out a few emails asking if anyone would love to have a portrait. It was one of those headlines where I said, please read this, and it embarrasses Monica. But anyway, everything was in caps, and this wonderful lady said, sure, come on over. And she honored me by letting me make her portrait. I bounced a strobe off a door that was probably 20 feet off the right-hand side because I didn't want it to feel overlit. I did put a speed light behind her because I wanted her portraits and her home is full of color. And so I didn't want it to go so dead. You need to bring some energy sometimes, be it with available light or speed light or something. It needs some energy to make the colors vibrant. So consciously, I wanted that in the background, because her clothes are vibrant, the furniture in her home is vibrant, her portraits, her paintings are vibrant. There's color in her life. This was done in
This is
Denver.
one of my favorites.
Done in Denver. Just an interesting couple, obviously. Just they are so comfortable, so natural. I was reaching out to some people that I looked at online, and they instantly said, come on over. And available light off the windows off the left-hand side. It wasn't quite clean enough for me, so I bounced a strobe off the windows. Now you can bounce strobes off anything. You can bounce strobe off glass because glass is not pure. Some of that energy is going to reflect back into the faces, and a lot of it will look very natural because you do have that available light coming in already. So it just, especially when if you could zoom in on something like this, I don't think you
No, I
can,
can't, and I
but
can't.
there's a beautiful light in his face and bring his wife in the background to add a secondary subject there.
And then I think, I think people at home will have to really zoom in, but that just little smoke from the incense coming right in front of him on his jeans and his shirt. I mean, the Sony just picks all of that up so beautifully. And I feel this is probably one of my favorites that you've done. I just feel like I could look at it forever and ever and ever. It's just really interesting.
His wife, and then we did a portrait of his wife after that, real quick, just available light. The next portrait we were up in.
Talk for just a second, because I don't think I enabled this to share video, so I'm going to stop share and then share again. So Derek, take it away. It'll just take me a second. Let's see. Share
Michael, how long is the typical shoot or interaction? How long are you with these people?
Usually
total?
I'm with them usually for about an hour, and I'm only probably photographing them for maybe 15 minutes, something like that.
So it's a lot of building rapport, comfort.
Right. Just saying hi, thank you for thank you for honoring me. I really appreciate you being part of this project. Just getting to know each other, asking about their story, how they get interested in this art, or how did you start selling these things, or whatever it is,
Mhm.
And at the end of this little section, I have a thing called 72 Hours in Memphis, because about a month ago, I went to Memphis for 3 days, and it was like, this is such an honor to be with these people, and to just spend some time with these folks that are carving out a little niche in their lives, because of their work, because of what they love to do, whatever it is, and to be able to tell that story to me. It's fantastic. But it's also when I'm talking to them, I'm kind of looking around a little bit and going, okay, what can I do here? How can we make this place look interesting? What do we want to capture? What tells a story? All those kind of things. So there's different parts of my brain that are working while I'm visiting with them.
And it doesn't take you long to set up your lights at all. Like, it's not, that hour isn't spent setting up and taking down. It's it's funny because you get on scene and you're a little bit like Rain Man. Like, you got to kind of like assess, you're looking around, you're not doing a lot of talking. I'm trying to fill up. That's better when I don't go, because I'm trying to fill up like the empty, quiet space while you're just like rocking back and forth a little bit, like kind of looking around. But then once you figure it out, then it's really, really easy, and you just set everything up really quickly, and then I can relax.
It's 5-10 minutes, and I pretty much know how the lighting's going to be. Thankfully, with the age comes experience.
There.
So.
Okay, so theoretically, this little 30-second clip will play. So let's try that. Let's try it again.
You can hit return.
Just give me a second. Jeez. Okay.
Bring your hand over onto the bike.
And then.
So just give you a quick feeling, of what the environment was actually like. But, you're just interacting with them, talking with them, minimal direction, his motorcycle mechanic, using the open garage doors there to really give the main source of light, but then supplementing it a little bit with the strobe to clean things up. And I think I put one little speed light in the background, just a little bit, to give a little separation from his body to the background. So just fun to go in, look at this great young artist here in Virginia. I just love his look, his confidence. He's passionate about what he does. Has different. Go ahead, you can have a different look in the color, which is wonderful because he has such vibrant colors in all his work and his clothing, which he creates also. Again, little softbox for the key light, bare bulb in the softbox pointed out, which gives you that really beautiful dimensional light, but there's a softness to it. A couple little speed lights behind him to bring up the color and vibrancy and depth. So this was in Pennsylvania, a young potter, just an incredible young lady, 3 children out in the country. One of the things when you just meet people quickly, you don't realize what they've gone through. Everyone has things that they need to deal with. Her first husband, because she had a flag out, it was a first responder flag, and I asked her about that while we were doing the session. He had committed suicide 3 years earlier because of PTSD because of doing the police work, and just 3 young kids, and just going through the session, and you wound up, and this is the pose I loved. It was I saw that I fight my battles.
It says how I fight my
how I fight my battles, and just a beautiful young lady who is powering through this, keeping her kids vibrant, their lives vibrant, making a living, and she's a giant. She is just a giant. And you would not know that unless you spent the hour and a half that we spent with her. It's just remarkable. This
Michael,
man,
real quick, before we start on this one, I'm interested actually to know your decisions between color and black and white. Everybody has their own approach to how they handle black and white and color. What is it for you? How do you decide? When do you decide? What are the identifying factors in shooting in color versus black and white?
I probably aim for everything to look good in color, and if it's going to look good in, this is going to sound bad, if it looks good in color, a lot of times it'll look great in black and white also. Sometimes if the color harmony isn't quite working for me, I'll do the portrait in black and white, or if there's a lot of extra texture and tones in that portrait, I think it looks wonderful because that that line from deep blacks to white, it's in that scene somewhere, and so that really makes it pop for me. So sometimes it's compositional things, sometimes it's tonality things like that.
But for instance, I think that's a really great question, Derek, because back here, I would walk into that space and think everything has to be in color, like what a disservice we would do shooting that in black and white. But then there's such power in this image. And so you had to have some notion of that while you were shooting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
so stripping it of the color does what? Like, why did you want to?
Well, I think a lot of times when there's so much texture all around, I think sometimes it's possible for that color to be a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought there's really a lot of strength right here with this young man. And I wanted to get to that strength and not be taken away because of the color. So
I think that's such a great, especially in this scenario, because, Monica, if you flip to the next one, the color, this is actually why I asked the question, it was in these 2 frames that I was like, interesting, because yeah, you're right. You walk in, you see all that color, and the color is harmonious. A lot of times when we talk about black and white being used, it's because there is no color harmony and the color's distracting, right, and it takes us away from the heart of the image. This is a case, which I think is a perfect case to prove that you can have harmonious color and still have it be a distraction for something deeper that's going on, which I think is such a cool way to look at it. Because normally when we talk about color being a distraction, it's like, oh no, like the color's just not, it's not matching, it's not complementary. There's no color theory here. There's color theory here, but I still tend to agree that there's something about the image before. It's because your eye shifts to texture and shapes, and there's just so much going on around. It's like that organized confusion again, but there's the rock. He's the rocks that's anchoring the frame.
Yeah, I go right to his expression in this, much more quickly than even in the other one, even though he's much more prominent.
Yeah.
This portrait. I think his expression here is so powerful, and I get to it more quickly, I think.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, so we're going to pick up the pace just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go.
This man's a welder. It's like, why would I photograph a welder? You know what? I looked at his
Well, it was
website.
the
Yeah, that's right.
The potter
suggested
recommended
him.
Mhm.
You know, he's working out of his garage in a little house, in a suburb in Pennsylvania, and you're walking in there and going, this is fantastic. This is just
Meanwhile, I'm going,
great.
oh my God, this is a 10 by 10 space. There's no room, there's no light. What are we doing? Oh my God, oh my God. And that's the difference, because he sees joy and I go into panic. I'm like, thank God he's shooting it and not me.
Again, we have this beautiful directional light off to the side, but just photographing through, this space here, it just works, and he wanted a couple of ones with him welding, so fantastic. This next one, this guy is a third, fourth generational farmer up there in Pennsylvania. And then it's a place, you would drive by his place every day, and not even stop, care, whatever. It's next to another farm. This man is passionate about conserving disappearing domesticated animals. So
Breeds.
Mhm. Okay.
Mhm.
So he had a cow from Colonial Williamsburg or a bull or
Or
something,
an ox.
or an
Yeah.
ox or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Details, tomato,
know.
tomato.
And on his farm because he's trying to save it.
And a miniature horse from Disney. Yeah.
I mean, just different things, but just listen to the passion that he has. This next man, we went out there because he collected old cars. There's a video on the next one here, just showing that we started here. And again, we got some really beautiful available light coming through the doorway there.
And we should say just real quickly, our sweet friends, Kristen and Sherry, found all these people for us. And we just took 2 days and photographed everybody. It was so much fun. Hopefully this one will work. Let's see.
So you just see a little clip here that got a little bit of available light coming in that you can see that's coming in on the car. That's really giving us our main light, but then turning a table lamp on to, go ahead, to add a little bit of life and actually giving us a little bit of hair light and edge light off the right-hand side there. Photographed over where he has all his tools and things like that, and we keep talking to him. And he says, you know what? We were there for the cars, but he goes, I have a collection of tractors in another barn. So we go back there, and this is what we really saw, because it was really kind of dark. There was just windows, 2 small windows on the right-hand side.
One of which is behind him. So that little tiny window is mirrored again, kind of right off of frame. And your first inclination was like, oh, let me get some strobes in here. And I was like, just try it. Just try it. The Sony can shoot in the dark.
But before we shot, just add a little bit of fill light. Let's go to the next slide.
Let's see. Here we go. Sorry.
And hit return. I had him open the doors so that there would be some fill light in there that would just give a little bit of energy to the colors that are in there. And then we wound up with the portrait. That was the next image.
And you can see how far back you were. You didn't bring it. That's a fill, not a main.
Right.
The main was still this the light from right next to him.
So, a lot of these, you're just looking for that environment to work with you. So there's a sculptor down in Atlanta, and then an artist coming up here towards the middle part of Virginia. Oops, sorry. This guy, his workspace is a 10-foot by 10-foot shed, and he does these beautiful glass artwork, so just making that little shed look kind of interesting with the background light, key light off the right-hand side. This next artist is actually one of our good friends to the eastern part of Virginia, Clayton Singleton, who just does this magnificent work. He's just the hardest working artist I've ever met. School teacher during the day, works on his art at night. Just the depth of this man is incredible. So
let's talk about this shirt, the t-shirt that's just thrown over his shoulder.
Well, I like the primary colors, in the painting in the background, and I brought that little coffee can or paint can or whatever it is, that red can up in front, especially for the next image. And so I just asked him to throw that red shirt over his shoulder so that it connected the colors from the background to him to the foreground. So just making little decisions, you make hundreds of little tiny micro decisions and a couple of main decisions, One of our friends they collect cars, and this is their garage, I guess you'd call it, garage, living room, barn,
Yeah.
He also makes surfboards, so we went up to his little workshop up in the attic, a little like 6-foot by 12-foot room. This guy's a beatnik up in Cooperstown, New York. A decoy carver. The desk lamp off to the left-hand side there is acting as a key light. Sometimes you don't need to bring all this stuff out.
Just talk a little bit more about this.
Well, again, just bringing the decoys, and that's what he does, right? We want to include those into the story, and those little tools on the bottom right, putting them at a diagonal. Now, they don't even have to be in focus. They don't have to be in focus, right? So putting them at a diagonal so your eye goes back to him. The fish, sounds weird, but the fish are pointed to him also and at an angle. And then I didn't need to bring a strobe. It's a small room. That lamp was actually looking beautiful on his face. We were just talking and visiting. I moved some of the paint brushes in so that there's a staggered line right to him. And the lamp is the key light. It's all the lighting that's there. Placing these paintings up around her, bouncing a strobe off the wall to the right-hand side so that it would simulate a big window light source that wanted the softness of light to fall on her, and then a little speed light on the left-hand side to give her a little edge light on her face and her hair. This is our new friend, Jason Quigno, wonderful sculptor up in Grand Rapids. Look at this magnificent place that we get to photograph in. Everything's covered with a 1/4 inch of stone dust or whatever. But man, isn't it wonderful? Look at this personality. Look at this artist. Look at this man that is just totally into his art, and it's just incredible. Get to spend time with him. What a crazy, wonderful, amazing environment. And we get to do this. I'm just amazed. It's just incredible.
He didn't want to let go of that cigar. That was,
yeah, that's great.
That was his, I think that was like his comfort, like his
Yeah.
blankie.
So real quick, about just to show you some things I do, about a month ago, went to Memphis for 3 days. That was where I first worked as a pro photographer. And it takes work. During the first part of this program, we talked about how I found people. On the next slide, you'll see that I had a spreadsheet and started with about 20 people and ways to connect them, and keeping a record of how many times I connected with them, sent emails, made phone calls, different things like that. And we wound up photographing 12 to 14 sessions. in 3 days. So, every 2 hours. And it was the
I have-
best 72 hours I've ever spent this year. It was great.
I haven't
Uh,
even seen these. These
you
are
know,
great.
So, barbecue pit master, for example, just window light off on the right-hand side, just
And obviously you moved the condiments in.
right.
Mhm,
Just
mhm.
give a little
On
light
both
there
sides,
on
both
both
corners,
sides,
yeah.
yeah. And I love the color. It just shows the background of the Delta part of Memphis. This guy is another one that just fixes hi-fi, amplifiers and speakers and things like that. Part-time musician, like everybody is in Memphis. Back hallway. This is a bathroom door on the right-hand side, which I opened. There's a window there that lit up that wall. So there's that warmth. So you have contrasting warmth and coolness. So, which I think is very interesting. So you have the old and then you have the freshness of him. So just the line of the bookshelves also. Greeley Myatt, who's a wonderful retired professor of art from the University of Memphis. All these stars that he made at this exhibit are made of different materials and they all have a different story. The hardest thing to do was to stop talking with him and just start taking his picture. Then he started going, I need to hurry up, and I have to get this down. So look, this is magnificent, isn't it? Look at this man, It is so fantastic to get to spend time with great people like this. This gentleman is one of those old-fashioned sales persons that, has spent 40, 50 years catering to his clientele. He has a store called, of course, Mr. Hat, in Memphis. And look at this. Isn't it wonderful? He knows how to, and look at, this is how he dresses every day.
This is my favorite. This
To
is my
take care
favorite.
of you, right? And this was done with, again, with a 24 millimeter lens, and Memphis is so much about artists and the crossing of cultures. This is Mosley, crazy studio in the middle of his home. Just a massive color and paint bottles and brushes and things like that, but just working your way, spending time with him, talking with him, and him getting comfortable with you. Look at this. I love that portrait. I love
Yeah,
the
it's
work
great.
the work that he does. Broken Records. This is a rap artist in Memphis. There's Broken Records that make up his hat, for example.
Wait, what? The
those
hat
are-
that he's wearing?
The hat in the painting.
Oh, the hat and the painting. Okay,
is
okay.
Broken Records. The hat that he's wearing is from Mr. Hat. So man, there is connections everywhere, which is wonderful. This gentleman is a wig collector. I just love it. And he had 30 more wigs. I'm like, okay, we're fine. We got 15 here. This man he's a FedEx pilot, but what he loves is his store downtown where he sells antiques and collectibles and things like that. He uses FedEx. He goes on trips. He gets assignments on his FedEx jet to go buy things to bring back. It is wonderful. And then we're talking with him. I'm not really getting anything I'd like. And then he goes, let me show you my secret spot. We go upstairs, and these are wooden mold. These are the start of wooden molds that are all 100 to 180 years old that made molds that made the manholes, made parts of the steamships, made parts of the locomotives, made parts of the banks that built Memphis. So he has the whole second floor of his store is filled with these wood that were made into molds. So this is where his passion, a female sculptor who has a art studio where she rents spaces to 20 other artists, which we are going to go back and photograph these 20 artists on one weekend. It's sometime this year or next year, whenever we get a chance. But I'm just saying, it's get to meet these great people. I mean, your life is only richer when you get to spend time with folks like this and bring it back to your studio here in Williamsburg. And make the portraits for people around here. Okay, I'm done talking.
Okay, he's done talking. All right. And I will just jump in and say we are teaching, you're teaching a lighting workshop in
Really?
June. And it's 2 days here at our studio. So and we do have a couple spaces left. So if anybody's wants more information about that, you can go to sigmundtayloredu.com and they can hopefully get one of those spaces that and study with you
It'd
for
be
a couple
fun.
days. So
Yeah.
We'll drop that link in the comments section. And going back earlier to the question about education, hello, we do free education here. And a lot of the people that we do have on our platforms, such as you guys, do education, mentoring on the side. I always tell people we invest in gear, we throw money at gear. How often do we invest in ourselves? So we have free education here. You get a free test run on all of our wonderful speakers, educators, creatives that work with us. And then it's something that for them to look into for workshops if you're in the area. Everyone's doing virtual stuff now. Mentoring is I would love to see mentoring get a lot more of the share of the industry, because I do think one-on-one coaching and mentoring is such a worthy investment for people who are really looking to take their work to the next level. So just throwing that out there. Now, we did have a question come in for people who joined late, or I know we discussed it in part one, Michael, but can you just briefly go in for the people who have missed it, how you are attracting these subjects? Are they coming to you? Are you going to them? Are you finding everyone in your travels? How is that working?
When we started out, I would just luck into meeting some folks, and then when this started really getting going, and I was saying, I want to do more of this.
well,
I
because we were
didn't want
traveling in the airstream.
we were traveling in the Airstream, and I didn't want it to be so random. And I was like driving, like looking around and going, oh, is there anyone interesting around here? You know? And so I started looking online. I started doing searches for artists, craftsmen, welders, collectors, you know, subjects that were going to be interesting for me to photograph. And so besides looking online of interesting topics, if we were going to like Nashville, for example, I would look up musicians. I would look up industry or someone that was unique to that city. Like in Memphis, it didn't work out, but I almost had a professional wrestler um, lined up because Memphis is really known for professional wrestling, you know? So I was trying to do that. You know, so I looked that way. I look at local magazines to see if there's lists of interesting people, notable people. Brooklyn Magazine is fantastic because they always have these lists of who's important in the culture for the city of Brooklyn, for example. So I look at magazines. If you look at NPR, PBS, you know, things like that, they do feature stories on interesting people.
And you gotten ideas too from asking ChatGPT, you know, who are interesting people. Like when we went up to Buffalo, you were like, who are some interesting craftsmen or artists, and they can't give you specific names, but it would say like, hey, you know, what about somebody that leads the tours of Niagara Falls, or you know, so it was kind of some neat. Not all of them worked, but it was, oh, I didn't realize that this industry is in this town, or you know, whatever. And so it had some good suggestions
connections
there
with
too.
museums, for example. If you like photographing artists, start Google galleries, and they will generally list artists that exhibit regularly in their galleries, for example. So you kind of go down these little bit of rabbit holes and things like that. When we travel, I collect names of places and things like that, and we've gone back a couple of times and followed up and connected with some folks when we went back to that area again. And also, like on Instagram, if I see something, especially, you know, my son lives up in New York City. I've been collecting Instagram screenshots or whatever you call it. You know, go, you know what? I want to connect with that person sometime, see if I could do his portrait or her portrait. You know, so if there's something like that, I'll do that too. So I have a collection of those in a folder on my computer, you know, so.
How do you
Just
handle it
listen.
when the connection or the vibe isn't there? I mean, it's easy to say, to look from the outside looking in and say, this is something that's really interesting. This is a great job, or this is an interesting craft. And then we can't help. It's normal. It's normal to not vibe with somebody. And this is something that, you know, it has passion project vibes, right? This isn't like, hey, commercial project, suck it up, smile, grin and bear it, deal with it. This is like, I'm pouring my passion in, I'm investing my time. Do you take it from a perspective of, let me try to find the angle, let me work in, let me try to find the chemistry? Have you had an experience yet where you're just like, just it's not firing? You grind through it and you don't really feel it, and you don't have to go into too much detail or name drop or anything, but it's a normal thing we come across as artists where not everybody is in line with us. And then you have those people where it's like, next thing you know, you're talking to them more often than you talk to your old friends and you guys really just connect. But I want to know about the other side, because I think that's the challenging side as an artist, because you still want to create your best work. And especially with a passion project, a lot of your best work comes from chemistry when it comes down to portraits.
Well, you know, I would say that because of my experience with our portrait studio and my photographing people for decades now, I can always get something. You know, it's it it's actually so rare that we can't connect with people. You know, so that it's really, you know, maybe it's been that one person or two out of
Yeah, I mean,
you know
we had
60,
somebody
70.
who definitely thought we were lucky to photograph him.
Mhm.
And, you know, you made beautiful images, but it wasn't an enjoyable experience. I mean, it was fine, you know,
Mhm.
but interestingly now, that was one of your earlier sessions. And interestingly now, as this body of work is coming together, I don't think he'll make the final cut because his
Yeah.
image just doesn't feel,
It's
it feels
disconnected.
pompous. It feels, you can look at him and say, oh, I don't care to get to know him or talk. Like, it's a little bit
Mhm.
arrogant. Like, even the speaker guy, I'm kind of scared of him, but I wouldn't mind like meeting him. You know what I mean? He looks
Yeah.
gruff and stuff like that. But this guy just was, it was disconnected. That's a good word. And so I think just because you photograph them, I mean, you do have to honor that commitment, right? You've set this up. So of course you're going to be a pro, you're going to finish the session, you're going to give them a great image or whatever. But it doesn't mean they make the final cut. It doesn't mean that they fit in with the body of work.
Yeah,
And that makes you excited to look at.
yeah, it's not going to make the book that you're going to do the intro for.
Yes, Derek
I
is ready
still
to move
got
forward.
you. I
Yeah.
still got you. I love that Michael did mention when you were talking about the project, you're like, things that interest me.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're focused on ourselves in the worst way culturally now. It's like everyone's like me, 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 me. It's like, no, we shouldn't be focused. But when it comes down to your art, yes. Then when it's like what I want to do, I don't care what the masses want. And I think that your passion shows through in this project, Michael. It's like you can tell the meticulous nature that you're piecing these together and the way you're laying out your frames and composing everything and stacking the lighting. It's all things that are indicators of somebody who's really invested in this project beyond just being a photographer. And I think that's the cool thing that restores some sense of humanity, and why photography is so important is that you're not just, we're such like a snap and throwaway. 15 minutes of fame has become 5 seconds of virality. There's such a, you know, it's like a pennies on the dollar is the value of a lot of the work that's out there. This restores the value of the dollar of photography.
Well, thank you. That's really amazing for you to say. You know, I think that with photography, with true photography, if we can capture the reality of that person, that scene, that environment, whatever our passion is that we're photographing, that's going to be lasting, you know? When we capture that reality and we're not overly manipulating, we're not doing all this compositing and all this kind of stuff, that's what's going to last, you know? That's what's going to last, regardless of what kind of art you do, you know, whatever your voice is. So thank you for saying that, because that's really important for me, you know, and it's always in my mind.
Yeah, it's real. Look, you guys, since you guys have first started coming on our platform, that's everything that comes through. You guys' work, your approach to business exudes an experience and a memory to be captured, and not just, hey, we're going to throw a bunch of stuff out there and see what sticks to the wall. And it really is. I think that the effort that you guys put into wanting your images to be timeless and to live forever is a value that not a lot of people, they might say they do, but everybody's more interested, I feel like now, in, hey, can this get me seen? Can this get the fanfare? Can this get the likes and the clicks and all this? And not enough people are looking at photography from a perspective of, is this going to be passed down to this family's next generation? Are they going to be
Yeah.
looking at these images 200 years from now and saying,
Well,
we have a beautiful image of our ancestors or of our family?
You know what? For decades, I've told people, portraiture is important. Portraiture is important. Your family, your recording history, all that kind of stuff. When my mom passed away a few years ago, she was living in Tucson, and I went through, she's living in a retirement home, and I was going through her apartment, and I was finding all these photographs of her when she was a child. My mom was Japanese. She grew up in Tokyo, grew up during the Depression, was there during World War II with all the bombings in Tokyo and stuff like that. And there was this little, about a 5 by or smaller, portrait of her and her sister done in 1936 in kimonos. And I have a gallery wall in my office at home uh, that portrait's framed and hanging in the midst of everything. And, it is so precious. I am so indebted to that photographer back in 1936 that did a portrait of my mom and her sister, and my aunt passed away pretty young, but, I look at that portrait and I just think Aunt Kimya would be really proud of what I have done in my life just because I'm following what I love to do, because that's what she did. She taught flower arranging, she taught Japanese folk dancing, and she taught calligraphy. And she was the first female grandmaster calligrapher in Japan. But she would so love you, love Monica, love what I do, you know? And she could maybe not do it, but she would
appreciate it.
That
appreciate it.
appreciation.
Yeah.
That's why we
Yeah.
do it.
Mm-hmm. So
Wow, you guys got me all in my feels right now.
On your feels.
I didn't think we were going here.
I know. But like we were talking last episode about the older we get. And I think, as we get older and there's less time in front of us than behind us. And for me, particularly not having children of my own, I think about what is the legacy that I'm leaving? What's my mark on the world? And so I think if people, again, like you're saying, it's kind of stop thinking about what's in it for you, what's in it, and you start thinking about what am I leaving behind and what was my purpose in this world. And I think, Ernest Withers, many people know who he is. It just was a famous civil rights photographer in Memphis, and photographed Elvis and the whole rock and roll scene, and Million Man March, and like all of the things. And you got the privilege of photographing him, and it still hangs in our studio. It's one of the most incredible portraits. I think it's on our website. But when you were in Memphis, you got to photograph his granddaughter, right?
yeah, I photographed
And
his daughter and granddaughter.
and they hadn't seen that portrait for some reason, and so you made a print, and they were like, they just reacted to that. Like we don't realize sometimes the impact of the work that we're making. So
Mhm.
Totally. And sometimes it's unfortunately death that puts in perspective how a photo lives on and how a photo carries someone's memory. And that those are the times that you really appreciate having photos of people. And I think the power of a nicely crafted, thoughtful, intentional photo is even more elevated when we're looking back at images like that. That's what I found. As you know, like you said, Monica, as the years get further behind us than in front of us, you really start to think about that. And it's like our moments are, you know, our memories are numbered, our moments we on this earth we don't know. A photo lasts forever. So why not put your heart into it? Why not put your entire soul into that image and make it something that is worth representing that person's legacy? So you got me over here. I'm like, got the pen out. I'm taking notes.
Yeah, we call that the power of the portrait.
I love it.
And we really believe in that. So
Love it. Well, thank you guys both. This has been great. Thank you for staying on a little extra to this is like the after hours, like the
I know.
it's not easy listening. This is like deep. This is like phototherapy.
Yeah, that sounds like a good series.
There we go. The gears are always turning. I love it. I love it.
I know.
Well, we don't have to wait long to see you back on. As I
Yes.
told everybody, you guys are mainstays here. So we'll be
June
seeing you shortly.
3rd, I interview Brooke Shaden, which is going to be freaking amazing. And then on the 5th, you are doing a 2-part lighting series.
Really?
Yes. I'll help you.
Okay.
There you go. Well, always great to have you guys on. Of course, a huge thank you for your time, your expertise.
Thank you guys.
Huge thank you to Sony for
Sony.
hosting. And Michael, keep us posted on this because I really do want to see the progress on this. You know, if it does turn into a book, or you know, if you do decide to drag it out, you know, we always love to see the process behind the project. So definitely keep us posted. If I see you posting on Instagram that you're in New York and I don't get a text,
Big trouble.
bad things, big trouble.
Big trouble.
Yeah.
We're going to do it. And we're going to
handle that.
We're going to do that little thing we talked about. So
there we go. We're going to do the thing. Let's make it happen. To all of our viewers out there, thank you guys always for tuning in. Of course, the #1 place for free education in the creative sphere. Keep it locked in here. B&H Event Space. That's all we got for now. You guys got me tongue twisted, tied, whatever, and out of thoughts. So at this point, I will bid you all farewell. We'll see you next time on another edition of the B&H Event Space.
Thanks, you guys.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.